Okay, so it's a slow pace of energy. A slow pace of energy, okay? That's the title of my piece of writing. I can go further than all this. I'm getting this done. The reason I'm getting this done is because thousands of people have died in a war. In two wars, Russia and Ukraine, Israel, Palestine, Syria, and Nigeria. Not as much, but Sudan as well, and Yemen. So there's quite a lot of wars going on at the moment, and the way I'm looking at the way I see it is that life isn't great at the moment for many people, and anybody can die at any certain point in time, and I just want all this to be preserved for the internet in some way. I have to face fact. I had a wonderful day. I had a wonderful day today, but that's besides the point. I had a good day today in my own country, and I'd like to be able to see the best works of art over the next few months. But I don't know if I'll survive because so many people are dying, and I just wish that they all. I mean, at the moment there are 8 billion of us in the galaxy, in the world. 8 billion people, all with their own stories. And I suppose everybody's trying to get their story done, so I'm not getting my story done. I'm just going to present poetry and fiction, which is what I do. And I do a bit of art as well, as you can see. So anyway, this is called The Slow Pace of Energy, and it's the first. It's the first in many poems and writings that I will do for you. I've picked out the best I can do. I know I can do better. I know I can, but in a slow pace of energy. Initially, an ignition. The beginning is now. In this place, known and unknown. Life is otherwise understood as the depth of a rest place in silence. A vacuum of nothing. There is not even suction. There is not even a hint of breeze. Oxygen is for another place. Yet there is breath. Something unknown is breathing. The undefinable is never understood. Nothing is known inside deep sleep. The place is the pause in life. For in the beginning, when we once knew such a place, billions of years later, when there was the first realization, there was more than gas spilling out. The entirety was a star. So all I had to say was the entirety was a star, and you'd have understood every last detail of it yourself, because you would have envisaged how you would have envisaged from your own understanding of A Brief History of Time and Stephen Hawking's theory of the Big Bang that maybe it was the entirety was a block of star, a huge block of star. And through Christopher Nolan's idea of dam burst of everything, colours, Jamburst of Dreams. It just thought, it was a thought within itself, and it expanded outwards. It expanded outwards from the thought, and I'll continue on. Sometimes beyond compare. 1. When there's a peep into the shape, design and formula for the creation of all universes, before anything is known as energy, or even before the first particle could shape every last aspect of life, and there's movement of a spacecraft, observing every known absence of matter, with all the queries about anything known as life, including my own being. The question is, am I here when I am not even here? 2. When I see the connection made to establishing life in a valley of nothing, which is not even a valley, but which is nothing, for it cannot be named as space in a place of nothingness, it is then I realize I am observing a complete absence of anything, and the idea God is either in a snooze, has travelled elsewhere, or has completely left us to look here and there at us in order to explain. You live, you die, you go elsewhere. And as God, I've been dreaming after watching nearly every last act in the Milky Way, in Andromeda, and everywhere else besides. So really, I could have simplified it for you and said, look, I could have simplified it with one thought. Am I here when I'm not even here? Without all the jargon, and we've all asked that question. Are we really here? Is this really happening? Is this really happening? Then I could have said, the God is either sleeping, he's gone elsewhere to another universe somewhere else, and maybe explaining to us that he continues to watch. But that's in the imaginative concept of God and the omniscient being of God. So why was I a surprise to God? I don't think I would ever. I don't know. I was a surprise to God. Imagine being gifted with. Imagine for a second that you're gifted with the most beautiful woman in the world. Who you consider to be the most beautiful woman in the world. And to go behind her back and you know. That's the kind of person. Anyway, pleasantness. Calmness comes with dawn light, spellbound by the opening of a day. Brightness in the shadows. See the atoms at play, bouncing here, there, invisible, visible. Then look at the sky and think everything at once. When guitar life is such a lazy stream, when it matters how the edge of life awaits. For how can it be peace in the shadows of an eternity, drifting to new beginnings, for all to see, even at dusk? I loved writing that poem, but there's, I wanted to, I'll read it again. I'll read it again just so that you don't have to rewind it. Pleasantness. Calmness comes with dawn light, spellbound by the opening of a day. Brightness in the shadows. See the atoms at play, bouncing here, there, invisible, visible. Then look at the sky and think everything at once, when guitar life is such a lazy stream, when it matters how the edge of a life awaits, for how can it be peace in the shadows of an eternity, drifting to new beginnings for all to see, even at dusk. I get obsessed with God sometimes, I admit that. Maybe that's the reason why I'm still here. But I get obsessed with God, I don't get obsessed with women, children, or men. I get obsessed with God. I have always put God first in everything. More or less, in my work I have. In my private life I haven't always done that, unfortunately. But I've always put God first. Everybody else follows after that in certain ways, but anyway, regardless of that, peace in the shadows, light in the shadows. Guitar life is such a lazy stream, yeah. See the atoms at play, bouncing here, there, invisible, visible. Do atoms move? You see, the way I see it is, like a frog's bone. That's how one egg in a frog's bone, and joined up all together, all the little bits of the frog's bone. I'm sure many of you have probably considered that when you've thought of atoms. And I learned at one stage that you couldn't see an atom at all. You weren't able to see an atom. That's what I learned. And then I learned that you could see an atom. So that's the only reason why. But now I'm wondering, do atoms move? Do they pulse? Yes, it's a good pulse like the heart. And I thought God may have been an atom that somebody in 500 years' time would be able to put a whole lot of consciousness into an atom and create God, and God knows. God only knows, but I've been thinking deeply the last while about foredestination, predestination, and present destination all happening at once. And that whatever is happening in the past may have an impact on the future, on the present, and whatever happens in the present has an impact on the future. What happens in the future has an impact on the future, plus the present, plus the past. So it's all happening all there through predestination, foredestination, and present destination. And side destination. What's happening in the other multiverses? There's a big chunk of life there, isn't it? The future, the past, the present, and the multiverses all having an impact on one another. And that's how we maneuver through a day in life. Possibly. Plus the way the gravitational waves move us around, we move around gravitational waves. There's lots of different routes and maneuvers to take, and anyway, beyond. Consider space liquid. Consider the words which were uttered in my presence, which were the words cosmic consciousness. There is a blending of space liquid with cosmic consciousness in my reality. It was night time and nearly every ounce of light was illuminated, as though the sun itself was shining in my room, when the being looked exactly like a physical shadow from superspace with all the suggestions the being was inspecting me. Please note, I believe beings from other worlds continuously inspect me, such as the way I tend to believe I live on board a spacecraft. I may have touched the wrong button one day, when there was a realization life went further than Einstein's series of nows, and what could exactly be seen beyond. What could exactly be seen beyond? See, I've already brought in the idea of Andromeda as the closest galaxy to the Milky Way. But the Milky Way hasn't been fully discovered just yet. Do you know? So, Andromeda you know how I've talked about gateways before. I've talked about gateways in other places. Or there's been gateways mentioned, but think of this, right, Dean? You know when we see the pictures of the Milky Way, is that the entrance to the Milky Way? Is the entrance to the Milky Way the spiral, the spiral at the where? At the north, at the south, the east, the west? Do you know, what, is it a tubular spiral? That's what I'm asking. That's the question I'm asking. Is it a tubular spiral? I mean, from what perspective is the Milky Way photographed at from all our, and from what perspective is Andromeda? And then we have the whole idea that we don't know about what's in space at all half the time. Dark energy, dark matter. Never. What's at the side of the Milky Way? What's at the very bottom? What's 50,000, what's 500, what's 500,000 miles doing below Australia, and while I'm being twirled around on this world, in Ireland. That's very good. Temperature. What was life before energy? What was in life before energy? There are statements to make somewhere. And energy is. It just is. More questions. Can energy be found in nothing? Is nothing energy? Is energy nothing? Then comes the statement of all statements. Is there more to energy than simply energy? What are the ingredients to energy? Thoughts drift to the connector, before the connector, and the aftermath. And there is a proposed idea. 10 billion years from now, apparently, it will all be over. And be someone or something wondering what is meant fully by the complete extinguishment of life, when there is every chance with the most powerful telescope there will be a capability of seeing the whole process to the end of life, known as the universe, and see it all as a black hole swallowing the whole universe. I respond to some questions with a theorist's mind. When the universe simply becomes a black hole at the very end, and black holes have married black holes in a place where hardly anything can exist apart from energy, we experience how the idea of energy ignited the last thoughts of every first and last being. Everything is known in a black hole. Within energy, therefore, all thoughts can be described as clear when final thoughts of beings on all planets in all the galaxies are joined together within the end of the end, understood as the beginning of something else. All thoughts can therefore be described as clear. A head nods through a whole concept of falling asleep. The temperature is always like a bodega. I've questioned while I was reading that, asking the questions about what energy is. I asked one question of myself: is energy an entity? I've looked at it from the perspective of thinking of how life is like a life is like a when a thought, before a thought comes into a mind, energy of thought comes into a mind. I don't know, I've just been beaten up here. I feel like the most deep person that you could possibly meet, and I probably am. And that's the end of the poetry. That's a few poems that I wrote. I had a number of other poems a number of years ago, but they weren't as deep. Don't know how I've gone so deep. I don't know how I've gone so deep. I do know how I've gone so deep. I do know. If you lived my life, you would have gone just as deep. I can tell you that. I don't know. I mean, can I be honest with you? I don't have much money, and I have the brains for making a movie, and I know the way that you can edit a movie and be like Jeff Wall. Be better than Jeff Wall even on your. I don't know how everybody seemed to have mastered video editing and camera work. I'm there as well sometimes. I know if I concentrate more, I'd have a film crew in here. But this is just me on my own, and just me on my own, and yeah. So that's the end of the poetry. Sometimes some works get lost. Over time, and I just have to check on yeah, sometimes they get lost.
So that's just the end of the poetry. Yeah, that's the end of the poetry. Now let's move on to other items that might be worth recording.